Get it straight, brother. Get the heck out of there.
I don't know if you can see this. This is Science Magazine. What's your name, sir?
Frank Furman.
Frank. Hi, I'm Barry. And the lady in the back, what is your name?
Right here. He wants to know what your name is. Okay. Tell me your name.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning.
I gotta let them know our name.
Good morning. A beautiful cloudy morning in Berkeley and in Richmond. Do you have the sun where you are?
I don't know where I are.
Okay, go for it. Okay.
Is there any way that we can? I'm sorry. Hold on, Barry. You're. Ah. You can
No idea
pull it
what
out
when the dates were.
at the edges.
Is that good?
Can we make them bigger? Like at this. Bigger.
Is it cloudy or sunny where you are?
I think that's bigger. Okay.
All right. Okay. So he wants to know: is it cloudy or is it sunny out where we are?
It's kind of cloudy.
It's kind of cloudy.
Like it wants to rain.
Oh.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like it wants to rain.
Like it wants
to
to
rain.
Hi.
Hi, Barry.
I think you know who I am, right?
Yeah.
I was trying to make it go back so you could see everybody. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So, in this,
Yeah.
of Science Magazine, there's an article about the sun. And it turns out that our sun is different from many other suns in our area that are similar to us. Our sun is a bit different in that it's quieter. And what do we mean by quieter? That means that it doesn't have a lot of sunspot activity. You know, the sun has these funny little dark markings that appear on the surface every now and then, and they are magnetic storms.
Wow.
And they are cooler than the surrounding area, and they take the total light that we receive from the sun, they diminish that light, and they diminish the warmth. But we lately have not had many of these dark objects on the surface of the sun. And we don't know why. Other stars in our area seem to have much more of these sunspots, as they call them. And so scientists, astronomers are thinking that our sun is a little unusual. And that's good for us. Are you hearing me okay?
Clear, but
Oh, good. So it's good for us because it creates a stable amount of energy that is coming to us from the sun without too much variation. And also, if we had a lot of solar storms, they might blow away part of the atmosphere, and that would not be very good. You can imagine what would happen if half the atmosphere disappeared. Also, solar storms can disrupt communications in satellites and even telephone lines. So we're very fortunate for the time being that our star is quiet. But the scientists said also that they didn't know if this was just a stage and that we would be starting a sunspot cycle in the future that was more like the stars in our neighborhood. So we'll have to wait and see. Any questions on that? The universe is so full of stars, it has been said that there are more stars than grains of sand on the beaches of the world. That's hard to imagine. But when you go out into space, what we discover is more and more galaxies which are full of stars, hundreds of billions of stars, and an unending stretch of galaxies that seems to go on forever. We're not sure if the universe actually has a boundary, or that it just goes on and on. And so today we really don't know the extent of the universe. We do know the age of the universe, which is about 14 billion years. That's a lot of years. And it's a time frame that allows life to arise. Our world is full of life. It is a jewel in space. It is incomprehensible when you look at the other planets in our neighborhood. They are decidedly not alive. And the Earth is a unique planet in our solar system. And we have no evidence yet of other planets in our vicinity, other planets that may be like the Earth. However, I shouldn't say we have no evidence. We have no actual pictures of them, but we do have evidence now that there are other planets that might have an atmosphere similar to us, might have water. And this is something very new. Only in the last few years we have detected, we are able to detect planets that could have water on them. And if they have water, a strong possibility of life.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's very exciting for us to think. I think that that life could be found in this universe in a fair abundance. We're just getting our feet wet, as Carl Sagan used to say, getting our feet wet in the exploration of the heavens. And we have ventured out a little bit into the cosmic ocean, and we don't know what we're going to discover. What do you think? Yes.
I have two questions. One
Yes.
about the atmosphere. And do you think, or maybe the question is, how long do you think before the atmosphere is broken to a point to where the Earth is in danger? I mean, the way that the atmosphere is, it seems like it's being so disruptive in so many times, in so many different situations. Is there going to be a point in time where it just kind of fails? And then what happens to the Earth if that happens? Like, does the flame from the sun come down and burn the Earth? What happens?
Well,
Or what's
I
possible?
don't think we have to worry about the atmosphere failing per se in the next billion years or so.
But that's good to know, because I have a chance for life.
We do.
We do, we get to live at least another 50 years. Okay, good. I think my grandchildren and my children are good, okay?
Right.
That's all I want to know. The other question is,
Yeah,
I can't say that I believe in aliens, but I also think that if Earth is here and there's other planets, like you said, there may be water, air, life in another planet.
right.
Because I think there may be people on other planets, and I also wonder that if we can fly to the moon or any other planet, why can't they fly here and do the same thing?
Right.
Think that are there aliens among us that look like they're human, or is it possible? And I really do think about stuff.
It is possible. It is possible that we have already been visited.
Mhm.
Um, there are reports that go back for decades
Yes.
that say there is something flying around in our atmosphere
All right.
that look like flying saucers or other shaped vehicles that balls of light and cylinders and things like that that have not been identified. They're called what? Unidentified flying objects. Right?
Was it?
And people have studied this, and many have come to the conclusion that these are vehicles from somewhere else. We recently had a $22 million program that lasted for 5 years. And the conclusion, this was a government program, and to study these UFOs, these flying saucers. And the conclusion was that they are real. There is something real there.
Yeah.
We don't know where they come from or what type of beings might be piloting them, if they are piloted. But we do know that these vehicles seem to be under intelligent control. And the conclusion is that the phenomenon, as it is now called, is real. And that's mind-boggling. And I don't know why more people aren't paying attention to this, because it's one of the major scientific stories ever.
Over years.
And it certainly would change a lot of people's understanding of the universe if they simply, if we simply discovered we were being visited, and we are being maybe even scrutinized by an advanced intelligence. I want to get back to your first question. I'm sorry, tell me your name again.
Marla.
Marla.
Atmosphere?
Pardon me?
About the atmosphere?
About the atmosphere.
Yeah.
You said that you were worried that the atmosphere was breaking down. Now, I want to qualify what I said a little bit. It's not breaking down in the short term, although in a billion years the sun will be 10% hotter.
Mm-hmm.
And that will cause some very big problems.
Yes.
With the atmosphere and with the entire living system of the earth, and it may be too hot then for life to be on the surface of the earth.
Right.
Who knows? We could go underneath the earth and maybe survive, but whether the oceans would not evaporate into space is a big question.
Right.
So we might have to find a new planet
Yeah.
in a billion years. But we might have to find a new planet even sooner, because we're putting so much, I'm making a joke, but we're putting so much carbon dioxide
Yeah.
in the atmosphere that we're changing the way the climate is regulated, and that is something unprecedented in the world in terms of human history or life's history. No other creature has been able to change well, I shouldn't say that. Plants change the atmosphere.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, because since you said that, I want to ask you this question because I wonder about that part too. Because you have rain, you have snow, you have all these different weathers, and you have man trying to control the weather as well as what is it? Because even with TV, there's so many different things. Like first, let's go with the weather. You have the rain, the snow, the sleet, everything. And I find that it seems like man is trying to control the atmosphere and control the weather. And to me, that also affects the ozone and the atmosphere of the world. And that's what I think, why I think that things can happen sooner because of man trying to control the weather like this. It's bad enough that they control TV, whereas you used to have an antenna, you can get TV from all over the world, but now everything is digital, and it's true, everything is digital now. So you don't even get a regular tune from another atmosphere because of technology today. So everything is digital.
Right. Right. So
yeah.
we live in a strange new world where we're affecting the weather, we're affecting the climate, and we will have some big problems if we continue to operate as we're doing now. The atmosphere is getting warmer because of carbon dioxide being released from cars and coal burning and all the fossil fuels, oil, and so the carbon dioxide acts like a blanket around the earth, and it is causing the heat from the sun to be trapped underneath this blanket, and we're slowly raising the temperature of the earth. So we've raised it about 1 degree since the last 100 years. And that might seem like not much, but already the ice in the North Pole and the South Pole is melting at an unprecedented rate. And if that ice were to even 10% of it would melt, you would have the 20 feet higher in your in sea levels, which would
because the water come up so high.
yeah, big problem.
Big problem.
And also, I was just reading in this magazine today how more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is causing plants to grow faster and have less nutrients. For the insects, for example, and other animals that eat them, the plants seem to have less nutrient value now. And already grasshoppers in the Midwest are declining in numbers, and some scientists think it's because the plants just don't give them enough of what they need. So this carbon dioxide has all sorts of effects that we're only beginning to understand. And unless we curtail it, we may be in a somewhat dangerous position. Not right away, but 50 years, 100 years from now, we might see some very radical changes. Any questions on that?
Would that be the cause of, I have seen, and I wonder about that. I have seen several trees, limbs fall off, like just out of nowhere. And you look at the tree and you don't realize that from the outside of the tree that the inside is dead. My neighbor, her tree just, the limb just, and it's really weird because I was riding my bicycle. And as I passed the tree, the whole branch fell off.
Uh-huh.
And
Well,
you
I mean,
looked at the tree, the plants are, the leaves are
right,
green, it looks like everything is fine, but
right,
itself fell off.
Age.
So it's something, I don't know.
right. It could be age. Someone.
Age.
It could be. It could be certain diseases that might be caused by beetles or viruses. As we're warming, the certain insects like beetles that damage trees are becoming more prevalent and are attacking many trees in all around the world. And we also have all kinds of diseases, fungal diseases that are becoming more prominent. Those diseases are attacking plants and animals. We see a decline in bats, in bees, in amphibians such as frogs. The frogs are disappearing from Central America. And many of the scientists are blaming this on the warming of the earth.
Yeah.
So we're seeing all kinds of things playing out because of this climate change, this increased carbon dioxide.
Mhm.
But people are working on this problem, and just in today's, I think it was the New York Times, it said that green energy is now surpassing coal. So we're making progress on wind energy, wind farms, and we're making progress from solar energy, and those things don't put out as much carbon dioxide. So or a minimal of carbon dioxide. Any more questions? So the universe is a very interesting place. What we can see is just a fraction of the whole story. From the very large to the very small, the universe, most of the universe is hidden to us, but exists in ways that enable life to happen and to thrive. The sun, for example, is supplying uh, energy to the earth in the form of light and warmth, and it does so because of a very special way that it burns its fuel. And if the sun, as I've said a few times before, if the sun were made of coal, it would have burned out a long time ago. But it burns in a very special way, which allows it to exist for billions of years, which is quite remarkable. And this depends on atoms. And it's atoms are basically energetic entities. And when you squeeze atoms together, as happens in the sun, you get a release of energy. And this energy is taken in by plants, and that energy is really what is most important to us in terms of keeping all life going. That sugar that plants make powers the world. And it powers the world because the light that plants have trapped is locked up in the sugar. Or I should say, the energy from the light is locked up in the sugar. And when we eat something, we release that energy, which has come from the sun. And so I have a beautiful book somewhere in here that's called Eating the Sun. And it's all about photosynthesis and how the light that reaches us is really the source of our energy. And that's quite amazing, don't you think? You eat a piece of bread and you're releasing energy that was trapped by the plants that make the bread, that the what, wheat or corn or rye, and the plants have taken the energy from the sun and locked it inside the molecules of the sugar, and when we eat it, there is a very complex process that goes on in the body that takes about 30 steps. When we finally get to the electrons that are in the sugar, and those electrons are what we use for energy, and those electrons have been energized by the light from the sun. And that's really amazing. And there was a monk years ago who said, all the Buddhas and all the patriarchs are one mind. And beside this one mind, nothing else exists. And he was pointing to something that is being discovered by science today, that everything is one. Everything is held together by the basic structure of the universe. And we are part of that structure. And we are an expression of the universe. And we may have a particular name, and we may be male or female, we may have a certain history, but we are also universal beings. We are also expressions of the cosmos. And that's something that I think we are just beginning to understand. Any questions or comments?
Henrietta, do you have any questions?
Well, I think that this is a wonderful possibility, and I think it would be particularly interesting if there is a significant difference in what this man has seen and how he feels about it. I think it's wonderful that you've got the copy of his brain so that you can look these things over.
All right.
It makes it very exciting.
Very exciting, huh?
Yes.
Well, thank you. If I have said anything valuable, it's because I've had wonderful teachers. And behind me, I have wonderful books. And we live in a special time when we can understand the universe as never before. And yet, what we understand, others in former times have also explained and have also hit the nail on the head. And I think Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas says that the kingdom of God is stretched out before us, but we don't see it. And that's a wonderful, wonderful way of understanding the oneness of the universe and how there is a underlying structure that is present in all things, and this structure is a great mystery, and gives rise to all things, and is um, is inscrutable and incomprehensible. And it's been called by many different names: Allah, God, Buddha, the divine presence, uh, you, on and on. There is a great mystery found in every moment, found everywhere.
That's fascinating.
Yes, that is, isn't it? I am fascinated because you have on one hand the Bible and how God made the world and created earth and everything. And then you have on the other hand, there's another book. I don't know if it's the Book of Mormon or one of them, but then it talks about science and how the world was formed by the energy
Right, right,
and created the earth. And that's how earth became.
right. Now, these are two different views from different times. However, they coincide in many ways. And the Bible begins in the beginning. How does that go? In the beginning. Thanks.
God created.
I'm trying to remember, because in the beginning,
Yeah, God created.
it was,
So it happened.
Well, that's from John.
hold on, I'm coming back with that. Hold on.
And
The Bible says,
then the Bible says God created so and so.
Read the
In heaven and
Bible.
earth. That's what it's saying.
in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was void and without form, and darkness was on the face of the deep.
He created
Right there, you have the earth without form.
Yeah, because that's what I'm looking at right now.
Without form. And science says in the beginning, the earth was just particles of sand and particles of dust from stars. Oh, thank you. You
So
have
in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Right, that's what I said.
Yeah, and the earth
That
was
may
without,
be.
and the earth was without form and void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God said, God saw the light and saw that it was good and divided the light from the darkness. And then it says that, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called it night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
Yes, thank you. It's one of the most beautiful passages in the English language.
Mhm.
And there it points to the great mystery of creation, which is not unlike the great story of creation that science has uncovered, in that the earth and the sun and all the planets were nothing but atoms floating in space, void, without form. And there was no, before the first stars, the universe was dark. There was nothing for millions of years. There were no stars for millions of years. The universe was completely dark, um, except you might say for a kind of haze that was caused by the heat, the latent heat of the Big Bang, and the atoms and molecules were simply floating in the void, and then through through an um, uh, unpredictable course of events, the first stars formed, and the first stars gave a new light to the universe. And you could say then, let there be light. And there was light, and there has been continuous light ever since. We are sitting here right now when new stars are being born outside in the cosmos. And it's an ongoing process to bring the darkness into light. I want to thank everybody for their participation today and listening so intently and asking questions. And does anybody have any final questions?
But thank you.
We feel very grateful that you have spoken as you have about these things, because we feel that you have a very impressive ability to kind of understand what's going on.
Right.
And I think that we really are especially grateful because you're so peaceful and sincere.
Right. And you know.
I think that's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much. And I feel your presence and your peacefulness and your good hearts. And it's a real pleasure to be with you. And